The following presentation is part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network. You're listening to Around the Galaxy.
This is Pete Fletzer. On this episode of Around the Galaxy, we'll be speaking to Scotty Jayro of the Bombad Cast. Join us as we talk about getting into podcasting, the Star Wars fan community, and our earliest Star Wars memories. So strap yourselves in, relax, and enjoy this journey around the galaxy.
D&D player working hard.
We're having roast.
That's why we're here.
Nice one. Good.
I'm in New Orleans, where it's kind of
an hour and a half.
Hey, you know, it's
Rolling. So, Scotty, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing, man?
I'm delighted to be here, Pete. I've been listening to your show since last year. Actually, honest to God, this is not even a joke. I'm dead serious. The very first episode I think I listened to, like all the way through, I was cleaning out my mom's shed, and it was, I think it was Jason Fry, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah.
And then I went down the rabbit hole, and then I think I started tweeting at you. So yeah, I'm doing good, Pete. A year with you has been wonderful. I'll just say that.
It's been great, and now we've joined a network together, and so it's funny because you and I talk on a very regular basis. So as I said when we started, I was like, Scotty, I got no show notes, let's just hang out and talk.
Yeah, let's hang out.
But so for those of you who don't know, and then I'll let Scotty give more info. So Scotty is part of the Bombad Cast, and Bombad Cast is one of the shows on the Beyond the Blast Doors network. And there's the shirt. There it is.
There it is.
Bombad, available on tpublic.com, I believe. Correct?
Yeah, you're right. We're part of that network up there.
Part of the BTBD network. They're very nice weatherman work. Very nice. Good job.
Look how pretty it is. Okay.
So, Scotty, tell me a little bit about the show, and then I'm going to tell a little story about what I know about Bombad Cast. And so, let me give us a little bit of the scoop about how you got involved in Bombad Cast, and you and Jerry, and what the show's about.
Okay. So the Bombad Cast essentially is Jerry's emotional vessel. I am a slave to him. No, in all seriousness, Jerry and I, funny enough, like I remember tweeting at him way before we ever did anything Bombad Cast related. And like, I knew I'd meet up a lot of people at Celebration in Chicago, and right. I didn't know Jerry would be the one that like clinged to me, but not in an annoying way. I'm serious. Like you can talk to Katie about it, my girl, and she was like, "This guy is wonderful. This guy is sweet. Yeah. This guy is just caring. He's very aware. Whenever her and I are talking, he didn't like talk over. It was awesome. Usually, it's hard to find people like that in like big public, huge situations, you know.
Right.
And something about Jerry just clicked with me, and when we didn't stop talking since Celebration 2019, and we. We're just joking around about doing a podcast, and I literally, you're gonna love this. Everyone says they like the Bombad Cast theme, and it's right. Literally, and Pete and I are both, musical people. It's a 1-4-5 in C, and then I was playing 1-4-5 blues in C, I thought, well, I can always layer the Star Wars theme over this, and I was doing So I'm like, well, might as well try. It won't sound that great. And then I did this weird chromatic thing, and like I sent it all to Jerry. I'm like, dude, if we ever do a show or anything, this could be our theme. And kid you not, he was like, all right, let's try something. And I never thought it would lead to doing it for a whole year and 50 episodes. And
you're just coming off you just a couple weeks ago just had your 50th episode. You've been on the air for a year, which is wild. And so the funny thing, it's funny and scary and weird how quickly time flies. I mean, so the funny little Bombad story, I don't know if it's funny or not, but so I remember you guys, so it's cool to hear that you started listening to the show and that you enjoyed it around the galaxy, because I recall you had sent me something at one point at a DM on Twitter, like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a show and I would love your opinion on it. And so I remember you sent it to me, and I remember listening to it, and I was like, these guys are having a blast. These guys are having a great time. and that's what's so cool about your show is it's it's a little bit more laid back, and I know you put a lot of effort into producing it and putting it together, but it just feels super casual, which I think is something that's really important for a podcast about a space war.
Yeah, I think we're the Seinfeld of podcasts. Like, I don't know, like, not of Star Wars podcast. We're not the Seinfeld of podcast. We're the Seinfeld of Star Wars podcast. But it's like, it's so funny. Like, Jerry and I have some episodes that like deal with very heavy themes, and then other episodes that are like literally me making fart noises. Like,
so so it sounded like you guys were just having a great time, and I knew the show was going to go places.
Oh, I don't know. There's very few things in regards to like, you start something and you have a good feeling about it, and then like that good feeling goes away. It just that's never happened for Bombad Cast. Like, I look forward to every time we record and every concept we come up with. And sometimes we don't come up with a concept at all, and then from experience, sometimes we come up with like an insanely deep, like when you were on, for the Phantom Menace thing, that was just unbelievably layered. So I don't know. It's such a creative venture that I never thought I would be super consistent with, and here we are, and I don't want to stop.
Yeah, no, it's so much fun, and so let's dig into that a little bit. So, it's an understatement to say there's a lot of Star Wars podcasts out there, and it's a weird sort of world that's slightly competitive but not, and a lot of camaraderie, so a lot of people supporting each other, and what do you think it is about Star Wars and Star Wars fans that lends itself to so many podcasts, and what is it about podcasting that's a good place for fans to get together?
It's funny you say that, because I remember when we started, we were like, well, what's going to make us any different? And for anyone that's wanting to podcast, if you haven't yet, it's not really that hard to do. Unless you can't get out of the state that everyone starts in. Like, it took us a while to get our niche,
Yep.
And then once we found the niche, we were good. Like, I think we were trying to take ourselves too serious, and that's just not who Jerry and I are as people.
Right.
And then we figured out, what made us work. And it's funny because, we've been doing it for a year now, and we've seen so many things change in just the fandom itself, Mandalorian. And I never knew that this would be something I almost rely on, like I barely talk about Star Wars with Katie. And I think it's an important thing to not, drown your significant other out with Star Wars. I mean, look at my office. Like, this is just insane, and like, if you could see everything else, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, the world of Star Wars podcasting is really interesting, because there have been times where like, don't know if I want to listen to music. I don't know if I listen to an audiobook.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to be silent, but like, I can put something on and it could just, take my mind off of things. And Star Wars is one of those things that is really good at doing it. And it could be any discussion. It could be literally about Zhao Yao's feet, or it could be about, what is the Force and what does it mean to be a Force user? It could be anything. And I think that's why it's a really rich community, and it has some great people in it too. It really does.
Yeah. Well, the amazing thing is, like you were just saying, it's how there is virtually an endless amount of things that you can talk about, right? There's like, and it's very rare where you will have two podcasts to talk about the same thing. And what's great too is, I think, is that there's so many different people in the fandom. The perspective, you guys could do a show about the Mandalorian, and I could do a show about the Mandalorian. You guys could do a show about, Grief Karga in episode 3 in the Mandalorian, and I could do an episode about Grief Karga in episode 3, and we'd get to a completely different place. And I think that's what's kind of cool about this podcasting universe with Star Wars, is it's so many different points of view.
Well, it's cool because this can easily be brought up, because we've got people like you and I who then can join together and talk about the same thing. And it's kind of funny, because I've always thought that it was really important to support each other. And that could be from just retweeting or liking a post to literally guesting on someone's show, to even taking the time to like maybe leave some critical feedback. And you've done the same for us. And I know we've talked about your show, and it's just like, I don't know, there's a lot of things to be very happy with when you it's I think it's really important to say that if you're going to start Star Wars podcasting, there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration or listening to things that you already love and like figuring out maybe I don't want to be too much like them or I want to be a little bit, less like, whatever. It's really kind of exciting. And there's been times where I'm like, oh, Pete's got the best guests, and Pete's got the best people. Or I'm sure Pete's like, man, I wish I wasn't an episode of Bombad Cast, which is really kind of cool to say. Yeah, it's nice to have that.
It's true. There's as we were just sort of saying, it's amazing that there's so many things that you can find to talk about. But there is also, at the same time, there's only certain types of shows, and I think, and that's I'm going to make a little commercial for the network here, and I think that's one of the great things about what we've done with Beyond the Blast Doors is you have my show, which is sort of like a weekly interview show, whether it's with a fellow podcaster or somebody that you may have actually you've seen or whatever. You have Holo Chronicles; those guys do amazing and fun things with collecting, and they do it without it being too like. They do it with sort of a sense of humor.
Yeah, they don't do it with the pushing the nose on the glasses like you shouldn't do this.
Right. Never twist the corner of your.
yeah, and that's an important thing because people don't like being told what to do. Number one, but it's also important to be able to feel kind of liberated when you listen to a podcast like them.
Of course, and we have Shannon, who brings her very unique perspective. She's got a global perspective. She's got the woman's perspective. She's got the special effects perspective, and David with the news, and he's a newscaster by day, and so we're bringing all that kind of stuff. And so again, I'll stop with the network commercial, but I think it's really it was you and I talked about it very early on. You were among the first people we talked to about putting this whole thing together, and it's. I think it speaks to what you were saying, that there's always been sort of this support. I mean, the very fact that you DM'd me when you had your first episode and was like, hey, I'd love to know what you think about it. And I didn't, I wasn't like, don't ask me. I don't, nobody, it's as long as nobody feels like they're above anybody else. And what's great too, is you got shows like Force Center, Ken Knapsack and Joseph Scrimshaw, who've been doing this probably among the longest of anybody.
Yes, definitely.
And they're accessible people, and they're because there's something about Star Wars that people just, it's why Celebration works. And again, I've never been to a Celebration, and I'm very disappointed about this year's being postponed, but I get it. But it feels like it's that same sort of feeling.
Well, it's funny because there's another important connection you can make too. Like, you and I have both interviewed some of our heroes in a really weird way. Like, if it wasn't for reaching out and kind of taking a risk on guests and people like that, I wouldn't have gotten someone like Mac DeMarco, who I've listened to for 5 years. You wouldn't have got Charlie from Anthrax. It's like, it's just like, I don't know, that it's exciting and it's fun, and I've never thought it would open this many doors. And like. I've had the honor of having you on my show. I've had a bunch of great, like Alex Damon, like you said earlier, Ken Knapsack. It's just like Hello Greedo has been on both of our shows. It's just crazy. And like, these people have been doing this, much longer than we have, and they still feel like they should talk about it. They still feel refreshed enough to talk about it. It's awesome.
And maybe that's why there are so many Star Wars podcasts, because it's not just enough to, and like, look, I have, my wife is just she doesn't give a crap about Star Wars. She's, she was kind of relieved that Celebration was canceled this year. She didn't have to tell me she didn't want to go. So this is an outlet for many people. And as I was talking about it with, gosh, I can't remember which guest it was, but it was not too long ago. We were talking about how it's important to keep in mind that, and this is where you have challenges with the split in the fandom, or not even the split, because it's fractured, right? It's more than just, one group versus another. There's a lot of aggression. And here's the thing. I think it gets more noise than it should, because it's trying so hard and trying to be so loud. But the thing I think that's really important to keep in mind, and I remind myself of this regularly, is that there are people who rely on this community, and I do to a degree as well. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to what, where your current mental state is, and especially in this world that we're in now, where things are a little bit intense.
Sure.
You have to remember that, and that's why I think podcasts work so well, because people get that outlet, whether and those who are inspired like you and I to sit behind the mic and do this, to deliver that content, or those that just listen on a regular basis, who I'm so thankful for. And I can't believe every time I look at the statistics and the numbers are there and people are listening, and it's really encouraging. But I think maybe that has something to do with why there's so many different Star Wars podcasts.
You brought up a good point earlier too, because I kept thinking about it. Like, there's very few social medias that I enjoy using right now. Like, it's no matter your political belief or where you sit on anything right now, like going through Facebook's kind of a nightmare.
Right.
And I think we're lucky to have a community on Twitter, you know, and even our patrons as well, and people that are just super supportive. And like, I can rely on them for literally, like, I'll message Rural Farm Boy Anthony, like out of nowhere, like, hey dude, you know, what do you think of this guitar? Whatever. We'll just talk about randomness, you know? And like, I never would have had any sort of friendship or relationship like that if it was not for him. Like, if it wasn't for doing this and being able to do things like this. And I like you said, I'm almost shocked that like people want to tune in and they want to hang out with us. And it's an honor to even be able to say that. And I don't know. There's a lot of good in this community, and there is a lot of unfortunate things that happen as well that can be pretty negative. But it's so much easier to stick to the positive part, like, you know, Neil Lowry and and Ryan Bullock. That is like, I get their notifications every day, and at no point do I look, oh, that's so annoying, stop tagging me. I think, wow, it's just awesome to be listed in the names of positive influencers or positive content creators. It's just, I don't know. It's really awesome. It's so awesome.
It's very wild, and again, it's a very tight knit community, and it's a very large community as well. So let's switch gears a little bit and tell me a little bit about how you got into Star Wars. How did you? I know you're a prequel child, but tell me a little bit about that story.
Okay, so honestly, for as long as I can remember, we had the THX box sets. I wish they were around. I just want to shove them in Jerry's face. The best box sets, not the bad gold ones that everyone likes to have and show on their. You want the THX ones with the faces on them. So I remember having those growing up, and I remember them just being on. And of course, like, I know you can say too, Pete, your dad showed it to you. And like, it's one of those things, and I don't know why. I think sci-fi and dads are just a thing, maybe. I don't know. Maybe how we grew up. Like, it is what it is. Like, I remember watching like Aliens when I was like 6, and like, I shouldn't have been watching Aliens.
Wait, what kind of parents let their kids watch Aliens when they're 6?
I had nightmares. Remember when the android got ripped apart? Like the orange goo, like the yellow goo and everywhere? I had nightmares for weeks about that. Like, I just did. The Queen Xenomorph was terrifying. So, needless to say, sci-fi was like a big thing I was raised on. And, you know, it's one of those things that you grew up with it. It's a huge part of your life. Birthday parties. I mean, the last day of school, my 3rd grade year, we went and saw Revenge of the Sith, like the day it opened. And just like things like that. And it's funny because, you know, you're 9 and 10 years old, and I didn't get to, you know, most people are like, you know, I mean, it's weird. I was truly a prequel baby. I was 5 when the Phantom Menace came out. I was the ideal age almost. And it kind of just dissipated after that. I remember playing the video games, you know, after Revenge of the Sith. And then it was really weird, Pete, because it was a part of my life that I never knew it would become a renaissance, you know?
I mean, nobody expected. Everybody kind of expected at the end of Revenge of the Sith that was it.
Yes, and even when I was 9 or 10, I was like, "That's it," because I had the Entertainment Weekly magazines, like the final Star Wars, like I had all of that. So my little brain was convinced, you know, we would just get video games and books and everything else after, and we did. We got some great video games and books actually, and I'll never forget where I was when they did the Disney announcement. I think we had just gotten laptops at my school, and remember, just came across Google News or something. Like, we were just bored sitting at lunch, and it says Disney acquires Lucasfilm Limited, whatever. I'm like, wow, that's going to be weird. And then I think the next day was the announcement they're going to do 7, 8, 9, and 2 spin-off movies in a park. And I was like, cool, like that's going to be cool. My friends were like, yeah, Star Wars is pretty chill, you know? And I not to give my whole life story, but in 2014, I went to college, and I think it was going out of my normal city and doing things different and like learning my new interest. And I just became obsessed with it. I don't know why. It just happened that way.
So you weren't, you became more obsessed with it than you were when you were a 9 or 10-year-old seeing the films for the first time.
You know what? That's a good question, because I think it was equal. I think it was like, you know, as a kid, you've got so many different things you like. I mean, like I was like, you know, I love Nintendo stuff. I love Mario. I love James Bond. I mean, like I can name all my interests as a kid because it's all very vivid, Legos, whatever. But like Star Wars was like maybe like a huge chapter of it. But it was weird, I guess, when I got older and I understood what I was watching more, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I was around 16 or 17. Like right after that announcement, I think I put in a VHS. Like I still had a VHS player hooked up, and I was watching. Think it might have been Return of the Jedi or something, Revenge of the Sith. One of those ones that, you know, are just a staple in your brain. And yeah, I don't know. It clicked, and I was like, man, why do I like this so much? And then here we are. We're on a Star Wars podcast. I don't know. Right. It's a weird evolution, man. And I know you could say the same. I mean, you dipped out for a little while, didn't you? I mean, you were doing
I mean, after so I went through both dips, right? Because I did part of that first wave, and I was 12 when I saw Return of the Jedi in the theaters. And I remember the day. I remember me and my best friend we were waiting for that movie, counting down, looking for everything we could find, magazines, pillow covers, whatever, anything that had something. And we knew the movie was coming out. And I remember my dad came home from work one day, and he said, I spoke to Mike's mom, and call him up because we're going to go see Return of the Jedi. And it was like, yes. So, yes. But to your point, like there was almost a little bit of, you know, when you're 12, you look at things differently, but it was kind of like, oh, well, I guess that's it. I mean, it was great.
Yeah.
And I felt much better about it than I did about the end of Rise of Skywalker.
Sure.
But I felt like, okay, that was great. And then things went away for a while. And then, there was the toys. There was the sort of resurgence of the toys in the mid 90s. There was the re-releases and there was all the writing stuff that I was doing. But, and then it came back. And then, you know, the fact that one of the last scenes in Revenge of the Sith is on the Tantive V4, it's like, okay, that's it. That's a nice wrap up, a little bit of a bow. Yeah. But I remember, so as you were saying, my dad was sort of my influence and what got me into all this stuff, both not only science fiction and horror, but also into writing and things. And he and I talked a lot about, and it was very, very exciting for me when Disney bought Lucasfilm, because he and I talked a lot over the years, because he's as much of a fan as I, well, not as much of a fan as I am, but he's up there in the fandom. And we talked a lot about, wouldn't it be great if Lucas was able to sort of take the stories and turn them over to somebody else to tell a story? Yeah. And we thought that would be, and so when I heard that Disney had bought Lucasfilm, I can tell you where I was. We were the power was out because Hurricane Sandy had blown through the East Coast, and so my family, my wife and my newborn son and my daughter were at my brother-in-law's because they had power, and I was in our house. And I remember I picked up my phone and checked, I think it was Facebook, and I saw the announcement. I was like, "This is great news!" Like, but I was very excited about it. But it's interesting now, because when Rise of Skywalker ended, and I don't think we'll go into my feelings on the film in this episode. If you want to. I know you're there for Jerry, you're there for me, and I appreciate that. That's very nice. But you know, when Rise of Skywalker ended, we know that there's a lot more Star Wars coming. So we're in this little bit of a trough right now where there is nothing, and it's actually probably for the best, I think. So let me ask your feelings. How do you feel about the fact that we're kind of in this, you know, when Disney bought bought Lucasfilm, we expected a new Star Wars movie every year, and we got one for 5 straight years. And now the 2022 carrot is dangled, but I'm not even 100% sold on it. How are you feeling about where we are with Star Wars right now?
So it's a little bit of sweet and salty, because, you know, I'm sure you might have heard my opinions on this before, but like, I'm so glad the sequel trilogy is over. And I'm not gonna lie, I loved each one of those movies. I think Rise of Skywalker, as of right now, probably one of my favorites to watch. You know, it's just that's the cool thing about these movies is you can totally get different things out of it, you know, and Pete, you might not get much out of it. And I respect that because you don't have to, don't have to accept that that's a movie. I got to like it. No, you don't have to like it. That's not how it works. And I've, you know, I will go on the record saying it here. I'll go on anywhere and say it. I'm so glad it's done. No one, all these characters that I love Rey, I love Kylo Ren, I love everyone new, but it was so hard to have the fandom react to bringing in old characters. And it got toxic for a while, and it was hard to, like, you know, it's weird. Like I said earlier, Facebook, now you scroll through Facebook, you're like, oh God, everyone's fighting. It's awful. But you remember in 2017, it was terrible. It was just awful. And every now and then you get a little bit of that, but it's nice that right now we're in an era where it's, you know, we got the High Republic coming out. That's all new stuff. Never heard of it. Young Yoda, it's going to be sick. And then you get The Mandalorian, which has just captured I don't know, it's captured everyone's, you know, attention. It's just like, literally, I was listening to Conan O'Brien on his podcast. He's like, me and my son watch it. And then like, I've seen Gene Simmons tweet about it. It's so funny. Gene Simmons, he said, I'm watching The Mandalorian on Disney Cable. And I'm like, this man,
Disney Cable.
Is dying. But I always joke about that with my friend Eric. He's like, this is great. Check it out. It's on Disney Cable. I'm like,
he's such a tool. I know you're a big Kiss fan, and I was a big Kiss fan when I was when I was younger too. But but that's funny. But you're right. I mean, it's like everybody. We went to see Rise of Skywalker, and I saw it, I think, 4 times in the opening weekend, because that's, you know, the kind
that's
of
how you do it,
person I am. And it's always been with like a different group of people. Like the Thursday night, it's with my neighbor across the street who we totally nerd out and go see everything. And then usually the Saturday, like then Friday is a bunch of high school friends, and then Saturday is family. And my sister-in-law, she's Jerry would call her a normie, but she's even like below normie. She like kind of knows how to spell Star Wars, and that's about it. But we walk out of Rise of Skywalker. She said, I thought Baby Yoda was supposed to be in this. And like, wow, it's just, you know, it's kind of like, it's this, that kind of cultural phenomena, I think. And we'll look back on that, right? I think we know right now what it means, or we know that it's big and it's important, but it's the new R2 and C3PO from 43 years ago. It's it's a cultural phenomenon. I tweeted this morning that when they finally give Baby Yoda a name, it's going to be a problem, because
it's brutal.
You know, it's going to be hard to handle that when that horse is out of the barn.
Oh, dude, it's weird because there's 2 points I want to bring up. The first point, the Baby Yoda reveal, honest to God, and I think you might have talked about this with someone already. I think it was actually the Charlie interview. I don't remember. But when that happened, and there was a 2-day period where it wasn't posted on social media, everyone was kind of honoring it.
Right. Yep.
That was honestly some of the best days of my Star Wars fandom. Like the Tuesday night it dropped, my buddy Eric texted me, I guess it was Tuesday morning, essentially, when it dropped. My buddy Eric texted me, goes, this is going to change canon. And not in a bad way. It was like, this is just going to change how you think of canon. And I watched that first episode, and I'm getting chills. I've never leaped out of a seat before and like freaked out in my own home about a Star Wars reveal. And it was the best kept secret probably since No, I Am Your Father. Like, it's remarkable that in today's,
it's unreal that, I mean, in fact, like, so I'm gonna out him here because it's okay. I don't have that large of an audience, but Dominic Pace, when he had reached out to me way before, I would say it was like it was shortly after my show launched, and he was like, hey, just want to make contact. I'm going to be in The Mandalorian, blah, blah, blah. At one point during a conversation with him, he told me a little bit. He said, you know, his description before I saw the show, and I was like, dude, you told me too much. And I thought he ruined like the best part, but he didn't. He said, he's like, in this one scene, these Mandalorians drop out of the sky on jetpacks. And I was like, oh man, my God. And then he said something, there was a rumor, wasn't there a rumor that there was some sort of child, right? But nobody knew what that meant. And if nobody would have thought Baby Yoda. In fact, that's one thing about that Dominic Pace did tell me was that they didn't know what the Mandalorian was protecting.
Wow.
Yeah.
They went through so much to make sure it was just not spoiled. Like, I was at the panel, Pete.
Yeah.
And we saw like 7 minutes of that whole first episode.
Yep.
They talked about the asset. They talked about its age and like everything. Literally, it's the first. It's like I don't know. It's like a huge chunk of the first episode we watched, and like everyone's like, "Oh, this is going to be a cool show." And then when that first episode dropped, I mean, I think I've told you about this. I think we've talked about before, like, to have a good show, there's going to be a twist at the beginning and there's going to be a twist at the end that just completely change your perspective of what the show is going to be. And my God, was that just like, that was next level. Like, seriously, it can't beat it.
Yeah, I think actually, I think you and I talked a little bit about this when we were doing the.
Whenever we were streaming Star Wars,
streaming Star Wars. But it's amazing, and I don't know if I asked you then, but I'll ask you now. What did you think the asset was as the show went on? Because I had an idea, but I want to know what your idea was, and I was wrong, obviously. But
I was wrong. Yeah, I always thought it would be Boba Fett because the age.
That's what I thought. I thought for sure they were going to go find Boba Fett. I was convinced that they were going to find Boba Fett.
Like, I was thinking it'd be another Mando just chilling back there, and then bam, and they get into like in that first episode. I don't know. I thought it was going to be something crazy. Like canon-y. And that's when my buddy Eric's like, it's going to change canon. I'm like, oh, it's going to be, whatever. It could have even been Ahsoka. Like, it could have been anyone. But like, when that little egg thing, that cradle opened up, I was like, I can't stop talking about it. It's just such a cool moment that we got to live, like really.
Yep.
That's something that's going to be looked back on by fans that are like your son's age. And like, for real, 20 years from now, they're going to be like, well, I was 7 when I saw that. That changed everything. It's so huge.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's wild. It
is
really wild. Was there a second thing you wanted to say about that? You were
saying
no.
It was actually back to the Rise of Skywalker, and I want to hear if your family had the same reaction. So, like you said, of course, the Thursday night showing is me with the crew. My people, my Star Wars people.
Yep.
Friday was with some friends. Saturday was with the family, and then Sunday was with the other side of the family because my parents are split. And
so you did the 4 days just like I did.
Got to. Come on, you got to, Pete. And I mean, it's honestly so important to have the extra viewings because if you don't like it the first time, second time might change it.
First time I saw Last Jedi, I walked out and I was like, I don't know if I like that. The second time I was like, that was amazing. So
it's weird. Like, you kind of have to just take your time with it. It really is like learning how to drink a beer. Like, it really is, when you're a kid, like you first take your first sip of beer, you're like, oh, like what, why? And then
why do people drink this?
Yeah. But what I wanted to pose to you, because I want to hear your perspective on this. When I saw with my family both times, the cynicism of not being an ultra Star Wars fan was there. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't there. I'm sorry. Like, we go in with, like the Wayfinder could have been called a holocron. There's so many things I can say that should have been, but when you go and sit next to your aunt, or you sit next to your cousin, or whoever who's up on the stuff, who remember seeing the movies, but you described, probably couldn't spell Star Wars. I'll never forget the reactions were all extremely positive. Like, one of my best friend who I went to middle school and college with, he was like, that was the best one they've done. And I'm like, why? And he's like, it had everyone in it. And he was like, Luke had a scene, Leia had a scene, Han had a scene, Lando had a scene, Palpatine, like everything that he grew up loving, it was there. And, he said it was kind of fast at first, but he loved it. It's funny. I don't know. What was the reaction like for your people?
It's exactly the same. It's funny when Last Jedi, I'll use my Friday group because those are the kids I grew up with. They're not kids anymore. We're all 50, but it's all the same. We all get together. We take a Friday afternoon off, and we all go and we watch it. And of course, I had seen The Last Jedi the night before. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking out of Last Jedi with this group of people who they're Star Wars fans, but like they haven't like taken it to the obsessive level that clearly I have and you have. And they walked out of Last Jedi and they were like, didn't like that one. That was okay, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
and we walked out with the same group from the Rise of Skywalker, and like that was awesome. They loved it, and it's interesting too, because just this past week when I had Teddy Newton on. Now Teddy is an animator. He's worked on Iron Giant. He's worked on Toy Story and Wall-E and Incredibles, and so he knows how to tell a major motion picture. Yeah, he did not like Last Jedi. He loved Rise of Skywalker. Now the other thing to keep in mind with Teddy is, I had him on the show because he's a storyteller. He's a friend of mine, but he's not a Star Wars guy. He's a normie, right? Yeah, and his response as a Hollywood storyteller, he loved Rise of Skywalker because for all those reasons, it had all those things in it. Whereas you and I, can't speak for you, but I know certainly for me, there were way too many sort of canon things they could have connected, and there were too many questions that were left unanswered, specifically about how Palpatine came back. Right. Whereas the quote unquote average movie fan who wants to go see the holiday movie extravaganza, grab their popcorn, their giant tub of Coke, and watch a movie, Palpatine comes back, they don't ask why. They're just like, I know that bad guy. That's awesome. Yeah. And you know what? I think people need to remember, and the people, we started this conversation talking about the people in the fan base who are so, those of us in that very sort of that concentric circle of people who talk on a regular basis and struggle with the negative pieces and talk our way through why did this happen? What did that happen? We are the ones that cared about that. And we need to remember that 97% of the Star Wars movie going audience, the people who bought $500 million worth of tickets, don't care. They they want to have fun with a Star Wars movie. They want to see R2D2, C3PO, and a lightsaber, and they're good.
Yeah. And that's a very important point to make. And it's funny because you can speculate. What is that? You can speculate on future releases of stuff. Yeah. And I mean, it's going to be interesting if Rian Johnson gets his trilogy, if Taika gets his show, whatever else is in the works. Like, I mean, you're going to have to, and Mandalorian did it. It captured the essence of Star Wars without having to rely on all the old sound effects, on lightsabers, whatever. It's just going to have to be done again to where it is a blockbuster, and it doesn't need Luke in it, and it doesn't need Darth Maul, and it doesn't need whoever. I mean, unless they go down that route, which I'm all about. But it's really kind of an interesting thing, Pete. It's going to be really cool to see it evolve. And like, now that streaming services is really just taken over cable. I mean, I really don't. I only know like probably 5 people that have actual cable still, because it's just like, I mean, you've got all of the Mandalorian on Disney Plus. I don't know. It's just weird because now we're in a very interesting transition, I guess is the best word. Yep. We are no longer, especially with everything going on right now with COVID. I mean, the rise of movie theaters might have to take a while, and it might take a little bit for them, to come back again. So I don't know. It's going to be such a cool thing to watch. And like you said earlier, like, what's this wait going to be like? I think this wait's going to be pretty awesome. Like, I really do. Like, I'm down to be done with the Skywalkers and everything dealing with them. Like, I am. It's going to be so cool to get something refreshing and something new we can argue about, or something new we can speculate on. I love that. I
think that's why The Mandalorian works so well. And I'm curious to see what happens to the Mandalorian fandom. Yeah. In season 2, right? You're gonna have the sophomore jinx, right? But you're also going to have, you have now sort of set, well, I was going to say you set expectations, but honestly, look, and this is meant in the most loving way, because I love everything about The Mandalorian other than Toro Calican. Yeah. Sorry, Steele, but I don't.
Can't wait to hear your coverage of that, by the way.
That'll be interesting. But, I think one of the things, I can say it without it being mistaken. It's not. It's an amazing technical feat, but it's not like it's not Academy Award caliber acting or even storytelling. Maybe storytelling, but it's like a spaghetti western in Star Wars. It's
so
got
bizarre.
cheese, right? It's got enough cheese. It's got enough. I mean, that whole episode 5 of The Mandalorian is so full of even the character that's played by I can't remember her name, but the woman who owns the docking bay.
Oh yeah.
It's cheesy, but I flippin' love it. It works because people forget. Look at the cantina in 1977. I was thinking about that. I saw a photo today, and thank you for having me on your show, Scotty. I feel like I'm doing all the talking here. I think I saw a production still from A New Hope. And it was Dave Prowse standing in his Darth Vader costume, and it was a guy dressed who eventually became, retroactively created to be Captain Antilles, right? But it was they were just standing there talking to each other, and I noticed like he's got the little badge or the insignia to show his rank in the rebellion. I mean, it's like 5 little dots.
Yes.
There was so many things that were so just sort of offhanded put together that have now become so important. And that's what struck me is how interesting that is, that the Star Wars universe has sort of become its own thing, but it came literally from nothing. I mean, I remember reading something that Ralph McQuarrie said. He's like, these stormtroopers are going to look awful. There's no way this is going to work. And it works so good.
It does. It's funny because, you were saying it about Mandalorian earlier being kind of campy and kind of cheesy, but like, it's great because I love wow, the brain's blanking. Who plays Cara Dune?
Gina Carano.
I think she is splendid. I think she's actually quite pretty. I'm probably somewhat attracted to her, to be honest with you. But when I watch it, it's not stale acting. It's really kind of like what's the nicest way to put this? It's like acting that you would see from a show that airs at 7 p.m. on NBC on a Tuesday.
And I'll go back a step further. I'll say it's more like 1978 NBC TV, right?
Dude, and you've got such a good point. It's like I'm watching like a character that was on Miami Vice for 7 minutes. And it's like the whole show. And it's weird because I watch it and I'm like, there's so much that people complain about in terms of minute details, but it's funny what people don't complain about. And like, I don't hear anyone complaining about the acting. And there's some things that, like you said, it's not Academy Award winning acting.
Right.
But I will say, The Rise of Skywalker has some of the best acting in Star Wars ever.
Well,
period.
Without a doubt, it's the best Anthony Daniels Star Wars movie.
Yes. I mean, and Kylo Ren, and then you got Rey with all these emotional up and down. Like, it's like you watch those, and like there's some incredible acting in these movies, and then you get The Mandalorian, which is universally loved. Barely anyone complains about it, and the acting is like, I don't know. I'm not an actor. I guess I've worked on short film projects, and I'm very proud of them. But at no point will I ever look at those and go, "What a fine actor I am." I have no professional training, and most people that do The Mandalorian have. But like, it's funny. Like, it's going to sound so bad. Like, one of my favorite actors in The Mandalorian is Bill Burr, and like, he's not really that much of an actor per se. I mean, I haven't seen The King of Staten Island, but I heard it's fantastic. And like, it's just funny to think that like the comedian of the show is the one that's like just really nailing it.
I think the reason it works is because he's just Bill Burr in that show.
Yes,
like he's
sour, all of it.
You could tell he's like inches away from dropping F-bombs because he's like that's who he is, But he is a great actor because he's not a Star Wars fan, so he had to really work hard to be in that environment and create great Star Wars, and one of the more fun characters. And again, that's one of those key episodes. Look, again, we want to talk about 70s feel. And this isn't streaming Star Wars, but tune in 2 weeks when we get to this episode 6, which is the one I'm talking about, the one that he's in. feels like Battlestar
God.
Galactica from 1980. You know, you have one set that you could tell they're shooting from different angles, right? The same stuff. The Twi'leks are cool because they're Twi'leks, but there's just these rubbery things hanging off their heads, and it shouldn't work, but it does. And you know why? Because I mean, the cantina in 1977 should not have worked. That should have been the most laughed at. You know,
everyone remembers that. My grandma is 82 now, and like, if we talk about Star Wars, she talks about how much she remembers the cantina the very first time she saw it, and that like, I don't know why, but it like hits me in my heart. I'm like, it's so weird that something that obscure and bizarre is like the biggest takeaway for some people. And you're right, dude. That's why The Mandalorian works. Like, to its core, that's why it works. It's this, and Bombadcast is all about weird stuff, man. You know that. And like, here we are, you know, waiting for the next season of The Mandalorian, and like, the only tease we got so far is this jacked up Gamorrean guard, and I'm stoked. You know, the one that that Favreau posted on Twitter, and I was like, that is going to be so sick, and it's going to be so goofy, and it's just going to work. And I don't know, that episode you're talking about in particular, Pete, that's the one that has like such a good closed story. It has such a good beginning. It's like, honestly, if that's what they're going to continue to do, is just making like super segmented things, I'm down. Like, but it's weird. People are like, I want the bigger picture stories, but I don't want those anymore. They're too much. I love the small ones.
And I think that'll be the biggest challenge, I think, for them going into the season, because Filoni's got his feet wet. He's sort of the heir apparent to some of the Star Wars storytelling. I wish they would give him a little bit more freedom. I wish they had him more attached to Rise of Skywalker, because I think some of the subtle things that could have just been just simple connections that nobody. You know, I think I said this a couple weeks ago. I might have even said it when you and I were on Streaming Star Wars together. Like, if instead of it being Grand Admiral Pride, if it was Grand Admiral Thrawn, you and I would have been like, amazing, it's Thrawn. And my friends from high school would be like, that blue dude was pretty cool. Like, they don't need to know his entire backstory, right?
That blue dude was pretty cool. Dude, you know what's funny? I remember when he announced his role, like, he wept when he read the script. I was like, dude, if he's playing Thrawn, it'd be the most and he kind of played a Thrawn-like character. He kind of did, just the way his vibe was, you know?
I think that's my, and
I wonder. I mean, you never know.
But this is where I think that this is the reason why Rise of Skywalker, to me, one of the reasons why it doesn't work as well, is because I walked out of it feeling like JJ was like, I don't want to hear it. I'm doing my movie. And like, I feel like there were people in the hallway like, hey, JJ, can we make that guy Thrawn? Or, hey, JJ, we shouldn't call it a Wayfinder. Let's call it a holocron. And he was like, no, I'm doing it my way. And it's like, just throw us because that 3% of Star Wars fans who are on Twitter every day spending more hours than they should would be like, oh my God, that was amazing. And the rest of the world wouldn't. Like I said, that blue dude was pretty cool. That's all that you need.
It's funny because, you know, so I'm a teacher. Y'all know that. I've been scanning documents all summer for my school. So I've been at work, and I'm like secluded in this one little room, and I'm scanning all their old their cumulative records, which is like all these documents they legally have to keep on campus. So if I scan them, they can move them off site, and we need extra classrooms because of the COVID stuff, right? So with all that being said, today I had a lot of time, and I listened to the Force Awakens commentary, and I listened to the Rise of Skywalker. I'm sorry, no Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi commentary. And this is what I noticed, and I think this is an interesting thing. This could be a whole Bombadcast episode. At one point, JJ mentions Pablo Hidalgo, right? And he mentions how, we had Pablo on set, and he named a couple of things, and we included it in the script. Okay. And so this is where it gets interesting. The differences between, you know, the people who lead these movies. Ryan and his commentary was like, I probably sat down with the story group once a week, you know, to go over
100%
the script. And I'm like, you know, and then you get a movie like Solo, and Solo was like doing like a shot of adrenaline of just canon nonsense,
Right.
and like it's so weird, but there is a happy medium, and like I know it's going to be found one day. I think The Mandalorian might be the happy medium, depends on the episode. Right.
Yep.
But like it's crazy because you go in with these huge expectations as a fan like us, and they don't call it a holocron, they call it a wayfinder.
Right.
They I don't know. There's just a couple of things that you can list off, which is not something I want to do, but you can do it. Yep. And where things could have been a little bit better, reference wise.
And I think this is where, as you were saying, you mentioned Mandalorian. I think this is important because I think with all the rumors of either Rex or Boba Fett or both coming back, and or more important than Rex, or than Boba Fett is Rex, Ahsoka, and isn't Sabine and
Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan. That's what I'm thinking of. We know who they are.
Oh yeah.
And when they're introduced to this story, how they're introduced in a way that doesn't alienate, like my dad who never watches that stuff but likes The Mandalorian. Yes. If he feels for a second that he has to go watch something else to catch up, he's out. Now, the excellent storytelling and excellent world building allows you to have characters like if Ahsoka shows up and you're like, oh, who was that blue-headed, woman with the lightsaber? You can be like, if you like her, go check out Clone Wars and go check out Rebels and read this book, and they'll be like, wow, that's great, I care about that. Or if you're like, if they say, who was that? And you're like, it was a character, and they're like, okay, that's fine, I don't care. And the story still works, then they did it right. Yeah. You have to be careful not to serialize it so much that you need to have watched 7 seasons of Clone Wars to understand what happened.
It's funny because you brought up a good point, and I'll tell you a great example of this. The Mandalorian had just ended. It was December, and my family, usually not since the quarantine stuff, we would go out to eat every Friday night at a Mexican restaurant. We've been doing this for 12 years, right? It's literally 15 of us. It's a lot of people. And my uncle had been keeping up with The Mandalorian. My cousin Troy and I, who's been on our show before, we're sitting there, and he's like, man, I love The Mandalorian. I love the ending was so cool with the TIE fighter and everything. I said, yeah. He goes, what was up with that knockoff lightsaber at the end? I'm like, wait, like he said, I like knockoff. He goes, yeah, it was like black and like it was weird. And I was like, well, I said, that's actually from 2 animated shows. And he like shut down immediately. He was like, well, I'm not watching that. That's too much work, you know? And for us, that moment was like kind of like the Baby Yoda review. You're like, what? How did he? What? You know? And it's gonna be, that's gonna be I'm not scared for it. I'm not scared for anything, but I'm anticipating the way they explain that, because that's gonna be very interesting. Especially for someone like my uncle, like who just or your dad who knows it but doesn't, want to know.
Well, they're going to need to make it so that they can explain enough of it so that the story can continue to move forward. But at the same time, not make it so that you have to go and study it. Right.
Exactly.
And because you're looking at half-hour episodes too, you can't spend a whole lot of time on that. And again, I think Ahsoka, I think Bo-Katan, I think they're going to come in as flashbacks or just quick connections that you can live with or without. Like, for example, the perfect way it's done is if that's Paz Vizsla and that's pre-Vizsla's son or whatever the connection is, you and I care about that.
Yes.
To my dad, it's just the big blue Mandalorian guy with the gun.
The guy with the gun, with the jetpack.
That's all that matters, right? And so they need to get it so that at the end of the day, they're like, oh, this Moff Gideon guy, like if they spend, and this is the challenge, is how are they going to tell the story of the Darksaber and what it means to the Mandalorian culture without making it like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or The Hobbit, where you need to learn this whole history. If they can be just like, oh, there's a tradition that whoever holds the Darksaber rules the Mandalorians. Okay, I can live with that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And if you want the history, we got
there
11 seasons of stuff where we talk about it in 2 different shows.
Well, like you said earlier, this is important why Dave is involved. That's so important, and it's been rumored that he's involved in a lot more other stuff, and it's so good that he is. And it's kind of awesome to think that Dave is going to be a household name. It's going to get to the point where probably in the next 3 years, we're like, just as common as J.J. Abrams is in Star Wars. I want nothing more than for someone like my dad who just doesn't keep up with it to go like, oh, that Dave Filoni guy, he sure does make some good stuff, whatever it is,
Right.
And I'm looking forward to it. I don't know. Dave is this really awesome creative head, and I don't know. It's funny, like you I know you noticed this too when you watched the last episode of The Gallery. Jon Favreau is just. He's a Hollywood type. He has got his mind on 20 different things. He's like Spielberg. He's just got his hand involved in so much stuff. And he was like, those are the Death Troopers from Rogue. And he's like, Rogue One, where Dave's like, actually the ATST was here. It's like, it's cool that there's that dynamic there and they play off each other. And I don't know. I don't know. I keep saying it's exciting. People can get so stuck on the negative of what they did and didn't like about these movies, but it's so much easier to look forward to what we're going to get. I don't know. That should be the whole theme of this episode, I guess.
No, I think you're right. I think it's about being excited about what's coming. It's also about kind of like not getting hung up on what we did or didn't get. Did you get the story you wanted? And that's that could be a whole. There's another Bombat episode. Feel free to have me on whenever you like. But an episode about how do you deal with when you don't get what you want? Because I think and we live in a world now where storytelling is very different. I brought this up with Teddy. I brought it up with a couple other folks. Is that, and I've said this 100 times, and I just like thinking about it because it's very different in the way you tell stories now. And the example I give a lot lately is when Luke and Ben are talking about. When Luke gets the lightsaber and he says, oh, my father didn't fight in the Clone Wars. And if they'd made that movie today, in 2020, there would have been a 15-minute flashback to the Clone Wars. We would have gotten the entire history. It would have been big and bright and loud. But instead, it was just sort of there. And again, that's what will make Mandalorian work. If they're like, oh yeah, this is the Darksaber. Whoever has the Darksaber runs the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's all I need. Oh, you want more? It's there. But if you don't, that's cool.
Well, what's funny because Jerry sent us in our network group chat earlier that photo of Ahsoka, and she's in the foreground, and in the background you got Mando walking up, and like it made me really think, she was holding Anakin's and Luke's old lightsaber, and I was like. Not to say that's not real. It was a fan-made thing, but like the idea behind it, you're like, man, that's a story that we could potentially get, and if we don't get it, you can be happy about it. I mean, you can be upset about it, but if we do get it, that'd be great. It's just, I'm so happy we live in a very like, it's all really open right now.
Yep.
Nothing is closed, nothing is confined, and hopefully Star Wars from here on out will be as open as the Marvel movies are. Like you go to those movies, you have a good time, you're good. And they're open. They don't really constrain on themselves. So,
right, and that's a great example too, because I have a really good friend of mine is a huge Marvel guy, and I go to the Marvel movies and I eat my popcorn and I have fun with them and I move on, and yet he will obsess over that's not really the way Vision would have said that, and this is and that's cool. That's that's because that's his Star Wars, and you and I will walk out of Rise of Skywalker and be like, well, I don't know if that's what Palpatine would have done, right? But that's cool that it's made it to that point. And as you said, we have so much to look forward to. We're very, very fortunate there.
Yeah, I'm a naturally positive dude. I mean, I teach 12 and 13-year-olds. You gotta be a positive guy to be able to do that. And like, I don't know, I've been finding myself more and more eager to look forward, even though it's 2 years away and it might even be 3 years now. I'm fine for the ride. I'm excited for the new audiobooks we're getting in August or October. Like it's gonna be great. I don't know. It's very easy to get sucked in the I want this, but you just gotta wait for it. You'll get it. It'll take some time.
100%. All right, Scotty, I'm going to move us to our 10 questions segment.
Oh, I've been waiting for this since day one, since my first time hearing you, Pete. I'm stoked.
I love it when I talk to people and they're like, every time I listen to the show, I have my own answers to the questions, which is great.
And I think also, Pete, we got questions from oh my God. We've got questions on the Twitter.
Oh, we did. Did we get
Yeah, we got a couple.
Okay,
all
cool.
about my mustache.
Actually. Oh yes, we got some asking when that irresistible handsome mustache is going to come back. But let me just ask Cam's question first before we get to the 10 questions, because Cam had a really good question and it sort of leads to what you were just saying. He said, "I know you're a teacher, as am I." So this is Cam Ray who checks in with us all the time. He's a great guy. He says, "I like to incorporate Star Wars in many ways, as many ways as I can to make things more fun for both the kids and myself. How do you use Star Wars in your teaching? Any cool lessons or ways that you tie?" See what he did there? Tie it in to educating your Padawans.
Well, I can tell you this much, Cam. I feel that it's important to definitely include those little bits of wisdom in your lessons. You know, be any sort of life advice or even things that deal with like I'm a science teacher, so I was teaching 6th grade last year and we learned about forces and I showed them the video of Yoda lifting up the X-Wing and I was like, well, why can Yoda do this? And they're like, well, he's obviously using his force powers to do it. I said, yeah, but the X-Wing's really heavy, right? And they're like, yeah, so what did it take more of for him to do it? And they're like, well, more force. I'm like, pretty much, right? So a super simple explanation for anything dealing with forces. Like I can't push a car, but I can push a rock because I have enough force to do it. And I said, what happens when Luke does it? Well, he can't lift it up. You know, he's not strong enough in the force to lift it up. And so I used it kind of as a weird allegory, you know, just to teach them like, you know, forces and what it means to, you know, be able to apply more force to achieve, you know, whatever. It could be opening a door or it could be, you know, literally like rolling a tire, whatever it is.
Right.
And you know, I have there is, you know, do it or not, there is no try poster in my class. I've got a picture of the Millennium Falcon, and it's actually kind of funny. That's more for me because whenever I'm teaching and it gets really, you know, monotonous or whatever, and I just get to look back there and it's a Galaxy's Edge poster and it's landed. And I'm just like, oh, one day I'm gonna be there. I thought it'd be this August, but I'm looking forward to whenever I can go again. But yeah, Kim, that's a great question because I don't want to stuff it down their faces, but whatever teacher appreciation, Christmas, whatever holiday comes up, I always end up with something Star Wars, and it's anything from a Funko Pop to literally like a really nice wax warmer that is Darth Vader's head. So I don't know. I love these kids I teach, and I love that they care so much. And thankfully, they're at the right age where, like, you know, there's very few times where I'm like, man, I want to teach literature because I could totally do, you know, like an analysis of Empire Strikes Back or whatever. Sure. You know,
Yep.
I wish there was a film class. I would teach that. But yeah, Cam, that's a great question. Yeah, I try my best to do it, but I don't want to overdo it because it gets to the point where you get emails like, all right.
This isn't Star Wars class.
This isn't Star Wars class. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Now we'll get to the 10 questions. Cam, that was a great question. So now we'll try this again. All right, here we go. So, question number 1.
Oh, here we go.
What is your favorite Star Wars movie, TV show, or book?
I'm going to do all of them, okay?
You got
it. Favorite movie, and you know, on Bombad Cast, we got best, favorite, and most fun. Pete, if you ever want to take that, you can take that. Trust me, that's something I know you do well. Favorite has always been Return of the Jedi. I was watching it the other day, and I was like, man, this whole first part is like 55 minutes with Jabba. It feels like an episode of The Mandalorian. It's just weird. It's just like full of weirdness. Like from Malakili dying, from Malakili crying over the Rancor to the little dude that eats the guy outside of Jabba's palace. Like it's just so weird. It's great. And EV9D9's like, you're a feisty little one. Something about that beginning is so nostalgic, and like I remember like the weirdest things from that. And then Ewoks are weird, and I guess I just like weird stuff. Because that's a weird movie.
That whole movie, and it's funny. I think sometimes we forget that. I was thinking about that just today, in fact, about how, like, you know what, Star Wars, like, you can't. Nobody can complain about anything that ever shows up in a Star Wars movie. There's monsters, there's furry things, there's magic, there's people, there's spaceships, there's races, there's it's
so bizarre.
It's everything. And so
it's everything.
Yeah. All right, so that's your favorite movie. Return of the Jedi is your favorite movie.
And I was gonna say, if you really think about it, the Phantom Menace is kind of like Return of the Jedi in regards to how bizarre it is too. You know, from the pod racer to like Jar Jar. It's just, I don't know. I think I've found what I like the most in Star Wars. I think it's weirdness. I don't know. Favorite TV show right now, Mandalorian.
So wait, so is your movie Phantom Menace or is it Return of the Jedi?
It's Return of the Jedi, but it's got that same feel to it with the Phantom Menace. Favorite TV show, probably The Mandalorian right now. Yep. I really dug the latter half of Rebels, like the seasons 3 and 4. And season 2 is good, but seasons 3 and 4 are like where I thought it shined. Yep. And Clone Wars is good. I love Clone Wars because of how long it takes to tell a story. I really do I honestly like long storytelling more than anything. But yeah, right now the Mando is just the show that's for me, and maybe one day there'll be Kenobi. We'll see. You know,
hopefully.
Hopefully. And my book, Pete. This is a weird one. I think you've gotten this answer in your show before. I love From a Certain Point of View. Something about that book is like. For some, I do the audiobooks. I don't listen. I don't read the books. I think it takes too much time for me to read a book. I get too distracted. And From a Certain Point of View, just did from emotional to super silly to frankly some of the most bizarre, like the mouse droid and Tarkin. That was that was weird, and it was out there, and it was great. I don't know. That's one of my favorite books. Besides, I'm a big Thrawn guy too. Yeah, I know you are.
I love the Thrawn books, and I think though part of it is because I just love the way Mark Thompson reads them. But on a serious note, though, I do think Thrawn is one of the best developed non-film characters. Yeah, he's very,
seriously, and it's funny because I don't know. I like your book too, Pete. You got a good little book out there. If you haven't listened to it yet. Great audiobook, by the way. Seriously.
Thank you.
That would be my favorite because they have a cool twist. That would be my favorite.
Excellent. Cool. All right. So, what is your least favorite Star Wars movie, TV show, or book?
It's funny because, you know what? I watched Attack of the Clones the other night with my friend Eric. He was over, and we watched with the commentary on. And I got to say it right now because it's just hilarious, and he'll love hearing this. But the way George says stuff in these commentaries is incredible because I don't know if George likes pronouncing things wrong. Like he keeps calling Naboo, and
the Gungans.
Gungans. This one is new. I didn't know about this until I listened to the commentary. I don't know if you listened to the commentary for it. He called Dooku, and he's like Dooku. He's like, well, you see Dooku here, and I'm like, this is so George, and we couldn't stop laughing, and like. He described the full scene of like the hand on the back sequence with Padme. And I'm like, he's like, he's trying to tell her that, he really likes her without like saying it out loud. And I'm like, oh my God, like, George. Oh, I love you to death, man. But like that whole movie, I love the movie. And I think the commentary actually elevated it for me a little bit. But that's definitely the one I honestly, even as a kid, I didn't watch it that much. I had the VHS and everything. I just didn't watch it, Yeah. What was that like when that came out? You can probably give me some more feedback. That was really a weird one. No one talks about that release. Nobody.
This is true. So that release was interesting because I remember I went to the premiere for that in New York. I was very fortunate. I went to the premiere for all three of the prequels in New York.
Sick.
But I remember, so my main memory, there's two memories I have of seeing that one. One was standing in line, waiting to get in, and we were behind Karen Allen and her son, Karen Allen, Marion Ravenwood. And and it was so cool because I'm trying to think of the date. She wasn't my wife yet, but the woman who became my wife was with me, and we were wait, what year was it?
That was 2002.
Okay, yeah. So she was not yet my wife. Anyway, just want to make sure I got that right. In the very unlikely event that she ever listens to this episode. And so she was, Marion, Karen Allen was just so cool. She was just another person just hanging out in line. She was with her son, who was like holding the action figure. And we had to kill time getting in. So we were just, BSing back and forth. And my wife finally says, look, I have to ask you, you got to kiss Harrison Ford. How was it? And she just looks at my wife. She's like, meh. That was it. So it was pretty funny. But the thing that I remember is that it's the only Star Wars movie that pans up after the opening crawl. And I was jarred from that moment forward. And yeah. So offended. And honestly, I was never a big Jango Fett fan. I didn't love the C-3PO stuff at the end, and so and I think it's funny because you're right, nobody talks about it. So I can't tell you if people loved it or hated it because nobody talks about it.
So the playground talk when I was little, the only thing people talked about was Yoda, and that was, I can remember vividly being in a bouncy house at like my school's fair, dead serious. And this one dude says, I'm this like little kid. We must have been 02. I was like 7. And I remember vividly like this kid saying, I'm Yoda, and like doing like little flips and stuff, like little kids do. Right. And it's one of those things that like, that's it. Like, that's like really the only true memory. I remember seeing it in theaters and that memory. And I had the Bounty Hunter video game from that era. And that was like, dude, that was it. Like that movie is such a weird lull. And I guess that's why it's like my least favorite. I guess it really is it. Yeah. TV show, Pete, it's a difficult one. I don't dislike Resistance. I don't dislike it. Yeah. But it's something that you watch it once and you're kind of good, like exactly. You can watch some arcs of Clone Wars and just find new stuff every time you watch it. It's just how it is, Well,
what's interesting about it, and here's the third Bombad cast.
Here we go.
Keep going. But you know what? There's no use of the Force in Resistance. And I said this to somebody a couple weeks ago, and I think there's an unwritten rule, or maybe it's written, that somewhere in every Star Wars story, there needs to be a lightsaber.
Sure.
And there is none in Resistance, because even Solo, you got the lightsaber. Even Rogue One, you got the lightsaber. And the Solo use of the lightsaber is, I think it's more so that people in the audience who are like, is that Darth Maul? Oh yes, it is Darth Maul. But there's not even any talk of the Force in Resistance, and I think that makes it feel like just an anime TV series, and I couldn't get into it.
Right. Yeah, it was I liked the racing aspect, and I liked that it was in the sequel trilogy. That was cool. Yeah, but Pete, that was about it. It's just, and I know you have a young one, and was he disinterested as well? Or was it just?
It's funny. He was into it a little bit, and he didn't miss an episode, and he liked it, but not like he was with Clone Wars. Clone Wars was his thing. And it's funny. I really hate to say anything negative about Resistance because Christopher Sean was such a great guy when he was on the show, and he was such a nice guy, and it's a great cast. But I agree with you. Look, it's like it's like physics. Something has to fall to the bottom, so it's the least of.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're 100% correct. Something about it, I don't know. And when you get to book, this was an interesting one because I usually do audiobooks, so it's a lot more invested. I feel like there's a lot more time invested because like every car ride would be that audiobook. And I thought it could have been written a little bit different, just because it was so jarring. But Last Shot, the Solo novel, the one where him and Lando have to do the old mission. Is that Last Shot? Daniel Jose Alder?
I think so. I'll be honest. I didn't read it, so I don't know.
Okay, that was the one where I was like, I will never say anything wasted my time because I think there's good art everywhere. I really do. Even in music I don't like, it's still good art. But like I was listening to it and I'm like, and I wanted to finish it. I've never been the person to start something and not finish it.
Right.
And I started it and I was like, okay, I like, there's some cool stuff going on, but then like it was too jarring. I don't know. Like it was even hard to keep up with an audiobook. So that's the least favorite. So yeah.
That's fair. Totally fair.
Totally fair, Pete.
Totally fair.
Bud.
All right. Would you consider yourself an Imperial or a Rebel?
I have always, this is so bad. I've never done anything professional at design. I am not an artist, but I've always like, I can even show you, like looking at my shelf right now, it's all Imperial stuff. It just is. I don't know why. I like the gray. I like the design of, I think it looks way better. I don't like ragtag stuff. I like my car looking clean and fresh. I think the DeLorean looks cool. I think the Falcon looks cool. I think, anything that's kind of like thrown together. Like my first car was a 97 Buick Skylark. Thought it was cool. Felt like I was driving the Falcon.
Right.
But when I get in my Hyundai Sonata, which is a newer model, I'm like, yep, this is what an Imperial would drive. It's just nice and neat and clean. And, in terms of personality, that's a whole different story. But in regards to like what I like looking at and what I would have a poster of in my room, like I'm looking around right now. Yeah, exactly. Literally, it's like, I don't know. I like the clean cut look of the Imperials. Just do.
There you go. That's a legitimate reason to like them.
Has anyone talked about the design approach or no? Because the design approach thing is a huge aesthetic.
A couple people have said things like, I like their uniforms.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I mean, and I think that was one of the things that was strange. I'm still, I hate to say this, and I'm gonna get hate DMs for this, but I don't love the First Order Stormtroopers.
Yeah,
I love the classic Stormtroopers. The First Order Stormtroopers just feel not the same. But I love the first.
I'm sorry, Pete. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I love the First Order officer uniforms. I thought those were amazing.
It's funny because, like, right now, I'm not kidding. If I was at a store and there was 50% off the First Order helmet and there was full price Stormtrooper helmet, probably still go with the Stormtrooper. I would. Yeah. It's just this. There's a look to it. Like right now, I have a Vader helmet on my desk, and it's just I love looking at it, and it's not anything other than it just has this clean look. I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Something about it.
All right. So, what's your favorite Star Wars sound effect?
Ooh, there's a lot that comes to mind. The one thing that I often talk about is Padme's blaster in the Phantom Menace.
Oh wow,
that's such a specific sound. It's when she's standing there and she blows that window and she shoots the gun maybe 17 times, like, and it's a very wow. I can't replicate it. I can't do it with my mouth, but it's such a unique noise that I think then Phasma kind of ended up using, because Phasma's blaster in TLJ was so sick sounding. It sounded like a staple gun. It sounded so cool. So yeah, blasters. I don't know, blasters. The TIE fighter is a cool noise, but I think the blasters are something that just gives it its iconicism.
Well, and this is where Ben Burtt is I think everybody knows he's a genius, but I mean, even listening to Teddy last week, who talked, because he worked with Ben Burtt on Wall-E. And Ben Burtt said it just had an approach to sound effects. And what I think is really cool about Padme's blaster specifically, and it's interesting you called out that one, because you're the only one to call that one out specifically in 72 episodes.
Nice.
But I think he looked at those blasters and they looked very Flash Gordon, ray gun.
They do. They're weird. They're like
50s
with a sphere and like a
and weird. The sound feels more retro.
It does. It really does.
And so I think that's just some brilliance. And gosh, Ben Burtt was just brilliant at that.
Incredible.
All right. So the next question: who's your favorite droid, R2-3PO or BB-8?
I don't know. I guess because we're just coming off the high of the sequel trilogy, but like, there's something about BB-8 that, like, dude, I'll never forget. I will never forget that very first teaser, November of 2014. That was probably like I told you, like the hook that got me back in. That was probably it, if I could pinpoint it. And it had Finn, I can see if I can even recall the full thing. It was Finn, then Rey on the speeder, then BB-8, then Kylo Ren, and then the Falcon. And that shot of BB-8, like going and then looking to the side.
Yeah,
I get chills talking about it. Something about that was like, I think it was that design alone that was like Star Wars is back. Like, cool, X Stormtrooper, whatever's going on. Oh, that's a really weird speeder. But then that's what sold it. The double-bladed lightsaber was cool. The Falcon was great. But the first new aspect of Star Wars was BB-8, where I was like enamored. I was like, I cannot kind of like Baby Yoda. I was like, that's like the first toy I have to get. And I have the Sphero BB-8. I'm so proud of that. I love it.
I love that.
I love it. It's so cool.
It's think about it. Yeah, all the Sphero stuff is great. But it's funny you say. I haven't thought about it till you said it, and it's really, really very cool. Is that on Force Friday that year?
Yep.
My son got the stuffed BB-8, and I was like, he's kind of cool because I had seen like I don't know. I guess I'd seen something with BB-8, and I was like, yeah, it's kind of cool. And then he squeezed it and it made the noise. I was like, oh, he sounds pretty cool. And then I remember seeing him on the trailer, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Yeah, yes. He's gonna work. It's gonna work.
Oh, it's gonna work great.
And I'll never forget too. Like the scene when she's offered 60 portions to trade him in. And they don't do anything other than just shoot him just right. But he's almost got like this Puss in Boots kind of thing where he purrs, his eye feels bigger, and it's just so much character from a little orange ball.
It's incredible. Like he has like a head cock, and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
How did they nail it? Because R2 relied a lot on sound effects, and 3PO obviously body movements, but like my God, they nailed it with BB-8.
Yeah.
And they captured it. They did it. I don't know.
Yeah, they did it.
That's like a little bit of gold that I think, was that that's like I think the touch of George somehow. I don't know how JJ thought of BB-8, but dang, did it work.
Yeah, it seemed to have worked very well. Yep. All right, so what spaceship or vehicle from the Star Wars universe would you most like to own?
Okay, this is a weird one. I don't think anyone said this. Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, Return of the Jedi is my favorite. I love Imperial design. And I remember one of the first Legos that I was like super proud of building was the Imperial Shuttle one. And don't know why. It's just, I love the fact that it folds down. I love the fact that it's like, it's got like a little head. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like an Outwalker. It's got like a very, it looks like a hawk a little bit or a bat or something. It's got this very interesting shape. And that would be the one I like to own because I could bring people around in it. I would be able to pick you up, Pete.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Go pick up Andy and Josh, and then go pick up Dave, and then go across the water to see Shannon, and then pick Jerry up last. I'll actually drop all y'all off, and then get Jerry. I'm like, dude, they didn't want to hang out, and then I'll bring Jerry to a Crystal Burger, and it'll be fun. But it's something about that design, and I love the fly casually moment. Look like you're flying. I don't know. It's just something about it. I don't know. It's awesome.
That didn't appear until Return of the Jedi, right? That was not in Empire.
Nope, was not in Empire. Wait, no, it wasn't because Vader first lands in an Imperial shuttle. They used the heck out of that design.
Yeah, and they used it in the special editions of Empire, right? Yeah, I know. You got to check out the Bombad conversation on that. But I do, it's funny. This is why I love talking to you because you're bringing up a memory because I do remember like that's the second ship we see in Jedi, right? It comes out, the wings fold out, it flies down. Yeah. And you were like, cool. Yeah, this is the next generation Star Wars. It's right there. 3 years later,
and then we get Kylo Ren with his own version. Krennic's design is incredible. That weird obsidian black, like super sleek, like retro modern. It's so cool. But yeah, I like that they've been doing different iterations of it, and you're gonna love this, Pete. I was watching The Rise of Skywalker in theaters for the third time, and they have the scene of the interior of the fallen Death Star, and believe it's like in the foreground. It's very weird. It's like when they show Rey climbing stuff, but there is a destroyed Imperial shuttle, and I remember being like in the theater going, like that was, like I was glad it got one more little love. That was it. Just needed
That's
one
awesome.
little shining moment. Yeah.
Very cool. Very, very
So
cool. All right. Porg Ewok or Jar Jar Binks? Come on, Bombag Cast. Who is it?
It's funny. It's Jar. Like it's something about that character. It's weirdly aged well, and my friend Eric and I have done a lot of analysis on it. Why did he look like a dinosaur? Like why? I really do think that George has always been good about capturing the imagination of the generation that it was in, right? And a really weird part of my childhood, and Jerry can say the same probably, is that dinosaurs were very popular. Like like not paleontology, but like Jurassic Park was a really big thing.
Yep.
And there's a bunch of stuff that was really popular back then, like Pokemon, a lot of dinosaur stuff. I don't know what it was. It was like, I don't know. And I think Jar Jar really just grabbed everyone's, thoughts, even negative or positive, something about him. It worked. And Ahmad Best is an awesome dude. And he changed filmmaking pretty much permanently. Like people don't credit him enough. And people, he was the first mocap guy. Like that was it. End all be all. He was the one. So
Yep, I've said it before. Without Jar Jar Binks, you don't get Lord of the Rings. You don't get Snoke. You don't get anything you have now. In any major summer blockbuster, right? So, pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, of course.
All right, cool. So, if you could be any character in Star Wars, who would you be and why?
Lord, you know what? I didn't think about this one beforehand. Come on, give me 1 second, Pete. I've always thought that it was, like I said, Thrawn's always been really cool. But in regard, like being them, like, do I have to deal with their problems? Yeah,
I think so. Well, yeah, I think so.
Okay. Always thought Lando was just the coolest dude. I feel like Lando just kind of has a lot of his life figured out, and then some aspects probably not figured out so much.
Yep.
I think right now in this moment, I would say Lando.
Yeah.
Like I would say Lando. It would just be a cool guy to be, Some people respect you, some people don't. You don't really care otherwise.
He's the only one of the original trilogy human characters that didn't die, right?
That lived. He made it.
He made it through. So
yeah, you're right. Wow,
that's a good call. And you know what? He may not have had any idea what was going on with his life. I always feel like he's one of those guys that's like, "Yep, I'll figure it out." And I don't. No money in my pocket today. $1 million tomorrow. Who knows?
Exactly. I think he finds his way really well. Yeah. He doesn't have to look for it. He just finds it.
Yep. Yeah. I agree with that. All right. So, what's your favorite trilogy? Originals, prequels, or sequels? Now, I pulled this out for a couple of my guests recently, but I think for you, it's a good question still.
Thank you. It's funny because I believe a lot of people answer original trilogy. And though it is important to credit that, I think for me, growing up, it's weird. There's two, I'm not even that old, 25. So I've got like two distinct portions of my life now, And when I get 30, it'll be a third portion. I mean, I don't even think the teenage years count. That was all just nonsense. And then you got I don't know. It's where I'm at right now. But in regards to the prequels, I love them, but I think right now, I'm just fixated on the sequel trilogy. Yeah. I think there's going to be more to come out of the sequel trilogy with the next generation. That's been like a really big thought process of mine recently was like, the next, like when your kids grow up, and not to say they're going to be huge Star Wars fans, maybe they will. But when the next gen grows up and they are doing what my generation is doing now with the prequels, I think there's going to be more to be found in the sequel trilogy one day. And it might not be that George magic touch, but it might have something that neither you and I we don't see right now. We just don't see it.
Yep. Well, I saw a tweet the other day. It says, "I can't wait for 12 years from now when people love the sequels." And it's funny too, because I think you and I talked a little bit about this, maybe even on the Bombad countdown to with Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Phantom Menace to me, I did not like that movie. I had an issue with it. I even said recently that when Disney bought Lucasfilm, I thought, okay, cool, redo the prequels. And now I watch the prequels, and I actually like, when I look at the list of Star Wars movies, when I feel like putting on a Star Wars movie, it's not unusual for me to choose Phantom Menace. And it's
got something.
Something worked in it. That's right.
Something worked.
It's never Attack of the Clones, but it's
exactly. It's funny because this is a really interesting point, because Revenge of the Sith is almost one of the ones you got to sit down and watch. Like, you really kind of have to like adore it. Attack of the Clones, I don't ever put it on, but the Phantom Menace, like, literally, this is great. I had a New Year's party recently, and you see what I'm trying to explain. It got elevated, and I was at one point, I was like, you know what? I want to watch the pod racing scene. I had friends over, and like, set of fireworks, put the pod racing scene on, and in my sound, everything. It was so sick. It was just like something about it. I don't know what it is. The ending of the Phantom Menace, I don't know. There's really something very interesting going on with that movie that it took 20 years for people to like really kind of accept it. Now people, like you said, you just put it on. That's the one you want to put on when you're folding the laundry.
I'm not going to over elevate it, but it is a lot like A New Hope in that you can have it on and just have it on, right? Like, if Empire Strikes Back comes on, I usually end up putting down whatever I'm doing, and I get sucked in. Same thing with Revenge of the Sith. I will get sucked into Revenge of the Sith.
Yep.
But I can just have Phantom Menace playing. I can just have A New Hope playing, and just it's there.
That's another discussion, Pete. That's another bomb. You are building bomb.
I am giving you guys ideas.
It's I guess it's prequels then. I didn't really get to choose. I guess that said sequels. I'm saying prequels now. That's what it is.
Change it up to prequels. That's all right. Yeah, that's good. Good.
Got to do it.
Cool. And finally,
here we go.
What is your favorite Star Wars quote?
It's so funny. There's really thought-provoking ones. I can do one of them is the "We are what they grow beyond." Like, when I first heard that, it took probably the second viewing when I like really started. I for real cried. I was like, man, like, if that's not the truth, like, through their failure or through their successes, well, that is the bit of us that goes with them,
Yep.
And as a teacher, it really kind of hits home. It really does. Like, you've got some kids that you teach that like advance past what they should, other kids that kind of get fixated on stuff, and like, I love to be a part of someone's life and be able to do that for them. But that's where the serious stuff kind of ends. The best ones are the ones that like I can quote with my girlfriend Katie, and like the ones that always make her laugh are the ones with Tom Lee in the Attack of the Clones. She loves the line of "We've been expecting you" when Obi-Wan shows up in Camino, and he's like, "Oh, me?" And he's like, "Yes, Master Jedi," and takes her to meet Lama Su, and Lama Su's like, "The army you ordered," and he's like, "What army?" The army. There's something about that moment that like is just so silly and quotable. Like, it's like, I don't know. That's the one we always mess around with. And also, Saw Gerrera's "Have you come here to kill me?" is one of the other ones. And I know Jerry on your show talked about the wait, Leia. I think that was the line. Yeah. And like, there's so many lines in Star Wars that are just like rapid fire. Like, the Sebulba. I don't know. I could go on this. Like, this could be a whole other episode. Like Sebulba doing Yuputo, and he's got like I don't know. There's just so many good lines that are just deep, but also there's some that are just like common vernacular. Wait, what was yours? You had a funny one, I think, too, didn't you?
Well, I don't know. It's funny. Mine now changes almost every time I do a show because somebody else does something. I like Teddy's last week was "Sorry About the Mess." I love that one.
That's a good one.
But the one for me that it's not my favorite quote, but it's the one that I quote all the time is it's what I really need is a droid that understands the binary language of moisture evaporators. And the reason for that is because, and it comes up all the time. I think I've told the story before. If so, I apologize. But we I was like in my kitchen. And I mean, I'll say every time, like my son or my wife or my daughter will say something like, "Hey, you know what I need?" And I'll be like, "A droid that understands about it." And they're like, haha, very funny. But at one point, I was in the kitchen with my wife not too long ago, and I said something. You know what I need? And she said, "A droid that understands the binary language of moisture evaporators."
Oh, okay.
All right. She doesn't watch Star Wars. She puts up with it. She buys me Star Wars things and says, "See, I'm paying attention," but doesn't really care. But she gets that, and so that's just it. But yeah, I mean, it's all those things. It's
silly
because there's like one of my favorite lines in Star Wars is when Luke and Ben are meeting Han for the first time in the cantina. And this is brilliant writing. This is something that George does not get enough credit for.
Okay.
Because I think it's either brilliant or just dumb luck. And I like to believe it's brilliant. Where Obi-Wan says, "It's me, the droids, me, the boy, the droids, and no questions asked."
Yep.
And the next line is, what is it? Some kind of local trouble? It's a question. It's very next line is a question. And I put that right there with from the Phantom Menace, where Jar Jar is sitting at the table and his tongue is like getting the fruit. I can't remember what it's called. And they're talking about pod racing, and Qui-Gon just says in passing, you need to have very quick reflexes to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
And
I never put that together.
And he grabs his tongue. And it's just this little, not to be a Jedi, but to be I don't know. There's a line about quick reflexes, but he illustrates it right there. And I think that's George, because I think that's just like the no questions asked kind of thing.
That's good, dude. I never thought about that. Oh, Pete. There we go.
See, now you're going to put on Phantom Menace and watch that scene, and you're going to be like, yeah.
You're not wrong. Like, I don't know. Quotes are just endless. And yeah, I know. I think it's funny. Just the stuff that you can take out of context, like you just said. Like those are the things that like complete it for me. Like when art imitates life or life, it's like, I don't know. Like I'm going to leave this room and she's going to be like, "Ooh, we've been expecting you." And I'm going to die laughing because it's so, yes, you've been expecting me. I don't know. It's funny.
So do you find, and here we are, like coming up to the point where we're normally done with the show, but I have another question that I think, because I'm curious, because you grew up in a totally different time of Star Wars than me. Are you like able to obsessively quote, like, could you, and this struck me because when I talked to Teddy a couple weeks ago. When I was a kid, we didn't have, and I even tweeted about this, we didn't have the VHS because that wasn't out yet. We didn't have, Star Wars wasn't on HBO. So the only way we stayed connected to Star Wars was through the soundtrack for John Williams. Yeah. And there was an LP called The Story of Star Wars, which was 48 minutes. And it was like movie audio from the movie. And I think that's why I know like every single line in the movie, because it's built. I listened to that thing down to the grooves. Like I beat that thing up. So it became quotable to me because that was my connection. I couldn't just throw it on. I literally believe, and I've never tried it, but I've really thought about doing it, is watching Star Wars with the sound down and doing every single line, because I think I can do it. I think I can do A New Hope. What about you? Are you able to like just go from beginning to end, or with any particular movie?
Okay, so I've never been one to quote stuff verbatim. I kind of skew it a little bit, and I don't mean to get my brain working that way. But my boy Eric, who's been on Bombad Cast, he's really well studied when it comes to the prequels. It's just he loves the prequels, and we're sitting there and we can watch Revenge of the Sith. That dude can do the full thing, and maybe I can do some back and forth, but I'm not able to do that. I guess I just don't. I don't know. Maybe I do. I don't know. I can quote the Phantom Menace. Yes, you're right. You know, you assume too much. Just like weird, weird things like that. But no, I probably could. if I really tried it.
Right.
But it's got to be one of the ones that like I just constantly had on. Like it has to be TPM or it has to be Revenge of the Sith. Those are the ones I just had on all the time.
Yeah.
So depends. I don't know. We'll do it one day, Pete. That'll be a Patreon exclusive. Where
that's what we should do. We should.
And the Beyond the Blasters Network just ad-lib the whole movie. We have it on the screen, and we're all just saying the lines.
That's a great idea. I love that.
Oh man.
Well, cool. Well, dude, thanks so much for hanging out. This is a lot easier than texting back and forth. It's we're able to have the direct conversation. But this is really great. Where can people find you and the Bombad Cast online?
Well, you can find us on the Beyond the Blast Doors. that actually really worked, right? Wow. I'm gonna kiss it. No, you can find us right here, and you can find Pete here. And Bombad Cast drops every Saturday. Our most recent episode, if this drops the following week, was about the philosophy of the Force. And we had a friend on the show, Troy, and it was one of those episodes that like you didn't want the conversation to end, and it ran I think right at 2 hours. So it's just like super deep and thought provoking stuff. I go off on midichlorians in a good way. I love them. But yeah, Beyond the Blast Doors Network, you can find us on any podcasting site or any podcasting thing. I recently, this is so weird. You'll love this. I looked at Bombad Cast and I went to page 26 and I found a Russian podcasting site. And it had listens and plays. I'm like, I don't understand. It's just crazy how that works. But you can find us anywhere you get normal podcast. You can always just hit me up on Twitter at the Scotty Jayro, and I'm always down to talk. And that's about it. And you can always stay Bombad and listen to the Bombad Cast like Pete does. Pete's a big fan.
I am a big fan. Here I am. A lot of people don't realize we're literally right next to each other. I put a black curtain behind me so that it would look different from your room. But all the Beyond the Blasters people live in one central location. It's a bunker because we're committed to making sure we get content out every week, regardless of pandemic or world situation. We are here to bring content, and we all live in a bunker in New Orleans, I think is.
Yes, we're in NOLA.
All right, dude. Well, thank you so much. This was a blast. We'll do this again.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to, Pete. You're one of the best in the business. And
thank you,
if you
sir.
haven't yet, everyone else, go listen to the rest of his episodes. Finish this one. Go check out the rest of the stuff.
And stay Bombad.
Oh, I did it! All right, Pete. I'll see you later.
For over 40 years, Star Wars has been a part of our culture, a part of our lives, and a part of who we are. Now, there's one place with something for every type of Star Wars fan, the Beyond the Blast Doors Network. From the latest in Star Wars news,
a great day, an exciting day here on the YouTube channel,
to collectibles.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Yeah, what do you
beautiful.
How much you want for it?
Interviews with creators.
If you want your book to feel necessary, it has to deliver some insight or some piece of information that you didn't get anywhere else.
Famous fans.
Yeah, and it's all there's a
yeah.
That's great.
Fan documentaries.
This moment, the Force awakened in Rey, but it also awakened something in me.
And great conversation with casual and hardcore fans alike.
I've seen a lot of things end up on the cutting room floor that I'm like, oh.
The Beyond the Blast Doors Network was made for you. New content nearly every day of the week on video and podcast. There's something for every fan. Visit BeyondTheBlastDoors.com and on YouTube search Beyond the Blast Doors.